many of the challenges that women faced in regards to crusading were the same as those that the men faced, but they also had their own particular challenges. For example, many women in Christian Europe did not have control of their own resources because they were entrusted to their menfolk. So either husband, father, eldest son, which meant that it was difficult then for a woman to decide that she was going on crusade unless she had the agreement of her menfolk. And how do we know how many men went on crusade? Because their wife wanted to. And of course we don't. But that was an obvious barrier. Of course, there are also parts of Europe, parts of Germany and the Iberian Peninsula where women did have control of their own resources, and widows did, which is one reason why we find examples of women who are widows in going on crusade or going on pilgrimage with crusaders, or indeed going on as pilgrims because they have their own money so they can go. Then there are, of course, the physical problems. And here I'm going to come up with something that may not be immediately obvious, but cultural expectations for women is that their clothes are all covering and they wear long dresses, which does actually restrict what you can do. Now, some women did change their dress for travelling, and there's the story of Hildegund of Schönau, who went to the east with her father on pilgrimage just before Saladin attacked the kingdom. She was described as a child, so we assume a teenager, and her father dressed her up as a boy. This was for safety while travelling, so nobody would attack her because she was a girl, but also it's just sheer practicality. But yes, those long skirts, you can't easily ride a horse, you need special sort of equipment to hold your skirts in place and so on. This is before the invention of the side saddle, for example. So I think until you've worn a long skirt a lot, you don't think about this as being a problem. But then more mundanely physical problems, there's the small matter of the monthly bleeding, which means that, okay, even if you have some form of effective equivalent of a tampon, sanitary protection to stop the blood going everywhere, we all know that accidents will happen. And if you're on the road, this is much more difficult to deal with. And some women are completely doubled up for 2 or 3 days every month because of period pains. And even now, medics don't always know why this happens. So she just wouldn't be able to move, which is very impractical if you're travelling. And even when you've got to the place where you're having a crusade, you're still living in a tent, moving about the place and having to move instantly as very little notice. So how is she going to cope with this? Quite apart from the fact when you get to Jerusalem, the holy places will not welcome a woman who reeks of blood, or who might have blood all over her clothes if her whatever sanitary protection she's got isn't working. She's spiritually unclean, quite apart from being an embarrassment and smelly. So they don't want her in their holy places, thank you. So there is that little problem. Then, of course, she might get pregnant. And if she's travelling with her husband, she probably will get pregnant because methods of birth control are not particularly effective. Then there are all the complications that come with pregnancy, high blood pressure, preeclampsia, the dangers of childbirth. Many women die. And even if she manages to get through that and the child survives, then she has to look after the child. The child needs to be fed, the child needs to be cleaned, the child needs to be protected, and somebody needs to carry the child. So if she isn't wealthy enough to employ a nurse, she will be carrying the baby as well. So again, she will be hampered by the baby. Although when the child can walk for itself, you can give it things to carry and it can help you dig siege defences and so on. So all of these are reasons why it was difficult for women to go on crusade. And all the more impressive those numbers who did manage to accompany their menfolk or go by themselves and reach the crusading location and came home again safely. And obviously these were day-to-day problems, so they will be used to coping with them at home. But overseas, on the road, they wouldn't have all the support networks that they would normally have, and so it would be much more difficult.